Welcome back to Business Morning. Our conversation on the program has been on the 2015-2017 medium-term expenditure framework and FSP of Nigeria. Of course, we're talking about some of the developments in that document. We've been looking at oil prices and where we are at the moment, and if it is going to be realistic. The federal government is actually proposing a $78 per barrel oil benchmark price for the 2015 budget. But in terms of what the reality is, global oil prices have been dropping as of this morning, trading at $86 and some cents per barrel, but it's definitely not the best of times. And I've been having a conversation with a financial analyst and the chief executive officer of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. He's here with me in the Lagos studio, and from our Abuja studio, Overtly Awegbara, development economist and also a financial analyst as well, joins the conversation. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying with me on the program. Mr. Chukwu, let me ask you, we got this tweet from one of our viewers. It says, CBN says falling oil price will affect the economy, and Minister says Nigeria is not yet broke. Yet, state government says federal allocation has dropped.
Whether they are contradictions, they are not contradictions, they are consistent statements. Central Bank says drop in oil price will affect the economy. The state government says revenues have dropped. The minister said we are not yet broke. So they are consistent statements. If you mark the word not yet broke, it simply means our situation is not very good, but we're not yet broke. What the basic thing is if oil prices continue to drop, we hope it won't continue to drop. But the challenge I have is this, which we have to recognize. The major producer, in fact, today we are not even a major producer. Yes, if you look at our OPEC, maybe we're the 8th largest in terms of reserve, but in terms of production, we're only producing about 1.9 million barrels per day, against our target budget of 2.38 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia is producing more than 8 million barrels per day. In September, Saudi Arabia increased its production by 100,000 barrels a day. So if the increment that we are seeing in other OPEC and non-OPEC countries continue, you're going to see oil prices drop below 80. And when that happens, what will happen to the economy? You're going to have, like I mentioned earlier, a situation where the government will begin to cut down discretionary expenditure. And the first, the one that will suffer first may be in terms of capital expenditure. Well, we may see economic activity slowing down and our GDP growth rate dropping further.
Mr. Awegbara, let me come to you on this one. We got another tweet from another viewer, Salter Swan, says, even if the $78 per barrel is realistic, how realistic is the production per day? Can we enhance our production?
I think the enhancement of production is dependent on the Ministry of Petroleum and the other factors that have been affecting production in the Niger Delta. But also, let me say that whether we like it or not, the monetary policy makers must devalue the Naira. And you see, it's very good for the economy, because if we devalue the Naira substantially, it discourages the unnecessary import of luxury goods. And then putting pressure on the Naira means that we will be now looking inward. So I believe that at the end of the day, even though this will affect physical capital expenditure, that's okay. That's okay, but we can equally also borrow to meet the difference. South Africa recently signed a contract of $50 billion nuclear reactor with France, and the money is going to be borrowed. So I don't see how we want to develop this economy without investing in infrastructure. Yes,
but Mr. Awegbara, if you looked at the document, the 2015-2017 MTF FSP, there's a projected, the exchange rate is again projected at 100. Mr. Awegbara,
reduce the cost of doing business in Nigeria.
Mr. Awegbara, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about devaluing of the Naira, and we know that in this document, yes, one thing that was actually, highlighted was the fact that exchange rate should be put at 160 Naira to the dollar. That's the same, projection for 2014. Now, in light of the recent pressure that we've seen, and then what you're still saying about devaluing the Naira, is that really what should happen at this time? Is that what the economy needs at this time?
Look, I don't know. Are you trying to be realistic? Are you trying to be very artificial? The truth is that whether you like it or not, if the revenue from oil drops as it's going to drop, eventually the exchange rate must be lowered. Because at the end of the day, there's a need for a dollar to exchange the Naira, as exchange for the Naira. So what I'm trying to say is that the Naira must be devalued. And I've been hitting on this, that the CBN must devalue the Naira, because if you devalue the Naira now, importation of foreign-made goods will be more expensive than locally made goods. And that will mean a bonanza for local producers, local manufacturers. But if we don't do this and then we borrow in order to finance recurrent without borrowing to finance capital expenditure, then the economy will become in a bad shape as it is going to be, unless we do the right thing right now.
Mr. Awegbara, thank you so much. Mr. Johnson, closing words.
Okay, well, basically, he's right when he said that something has to give in. If crude prices drop, if you look at the medium-term expenditure framework, you can see that 65% of the government revenue, projected 11.1 trillion, is actually going to come from oil, while the 35% can come from taxes. Unfortunately, when the revenue from oil drops, even the tax revenue will also drop, because the economy is indirectly linked to what happens in the oil and gas sector. That's one. So now something must give in. It's either we use our reserve to defend the Naira, at which it's not sustainable, or we have to allow Naira to depreciate or devalue. So that's one thing. Second factor, the question your viewer asked, can Nigeria increase its volume of production? The answer is no in the short term. In the long term, maybe possibly. The PIB has to be passed into law so that the fiscal framework upon which oil exploration is done in this country will be well defined. Today, there have not been any serious investment in the oil and gas sector, particularly the upstream oil and gas sector, over the past 4 to 6 years, because the fiscal regime is undefined, because we have had a PIB that has been in the National Assembly for almost 6 years. So we need to address that if we have to move forward. But the key thing is that the country should be prepared for some difficulties.
So definitely that means this plan needs to really be reworked again in terms of the realities on ground.
Yes, I think the National Assembly and the Ministry of Finance should work together to adjust the benchmark crude price and possibly also adjust the volume, and then rework the entire medium-term expenditure framework.
Mr. Chukwu, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning on the program. It's been a pleasure having you. And Mr. Awegbara, thank you also for joining us on the program. Mr. Overtly joined us from our Abuja studio. He's a development economist. And Mr. Johnson Chukwu, who's a chief executive officer, Cowrie Asset Management Limited, joined me here from our Lagos studio. And we took a look at the 2015-2017 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. We looked at some aspects of that document, but of course, the conversation doesn't end here. Let's continue the conversation online via any of our social media platforms. But that's the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Harriet Agbini.